Rael. The meeting is now live.
Welcome to the County of Haliburton special meeting of the Joint Accessibility Committee. Today we're going to be looking at the Gull River Affordable Housing Project Plan Review. So with that in mind, Michelle, could you do a roll call for us?
Certainly. Councillor Rael.
Here.
Councillor Kennedy.
Present.
Councillor Schell.
Present.
Warden Danielson.
Present.
Member Bishop.
Present.
Member Miners.
Present.
Member Levis.
Present.
Member Baker.
Present.
Thank you.
At this point in time, we would like to adopt the agenda for today's meeting. Could we have a resolution for that, please?
Be it resolved that the February 24th, 2021 Haliburton County Joint Accessibility Committee agenda be approved. If I could ask for a mover and a seconder, please.
Mover. Pat. And seconded Phyllis. All those in favor of accepting the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passed. Motion carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Hearing none, we'd like to move forward now with accepting the minutes from the previous meeting, which I believe was March the 11th of 2020.
Be it resolved that Be it resolved that the minutes of the March 11th, 2020 meeting of the Haliburton County Joint Accessibility Committee be approved. We could have a mover and a seconder.
Mover. Jim as a mover. And Lisa as a second, please. All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion carried. So now we're going to be dealing with the actual project itself. Ian Clendeming, the planner for the Township of Minden Hills, will be giving us an overview of what is being planned, and that'll give us an opportunity to look at it. Ian, I'm going to ask you for a favor. I don't know what anybody else thought, but the documents that we have are a little small. So could you take a little time and just explain to us what we're looking at, if you believe something that should stand out?
Absolutely. Now, perhaps just bear with me. Unfortunately, I'm not at my work computer at the office. There was a unexpected emergency at the office in terms of, I understand, sewer pipes bursting, and as such, we were unable to attend the office where I was expecting to be today. So what I can do is perhaps if I can share my screen. I do have documents on the website. Just bear with me. I guess perhaps I'll just take a pause there and introduce the application by saying what this is it's a proposal by the KLHHC, Kawartha Lakes Haliburton Housing Corporation, to develop 30 residential units, taking the form of 15 townhouse type dwellings, each one bungalow style, front entrance, one floor, but attached by a common wall. The location is at Highway 35 and County Road 21. The current step in the planning process is the Township of Minden Hills is proposing to adopt is currently reviewing adopting an official plan amendment that would change this from the service and business area to a residential designation, and similarly from a highway commercial zoning to a residential zoning. The key feature, of course, is the fact for this accessibility advisory committee is that the location is about 1 kilometer away from Water Street and 2 kilometers from town. And the affordable housing is essentially catering to the aged and young families. So we are, as usual, affording the Accessibility Advisory Committee a review of the plans. Ultimately, it is the Township of Minden Hills that would adopt an official plan amendment that would permit this and subject to the County of Haliburton's approval. So I guess with that said, they are still working with Ministry of Transportation to ensure appropriate setbacks. They have a noise barrier to accommodate the existing and planned sort of noise levels for the what's called the sensitive land use, being residents. Now, I'll take any questions, and what I'm going to try and do is also just make sure that I have available to share with my screen any PDFs of the site plans for ease of use.
So does anyone have any questions regarding what we've got so far? Pat?
Yeah, just Ian, it says here it's a parking fire turnaround alternate location. Is that the purpose of today, or is that just the title of the PDF that you happen to send?
That was a revised configuration of the proposal, which accommodated no encroachment. It accommodated a fire turnaround. It was sort of their second revision, as it was. The first revision brought the development back from the water. I believe in the first instance, it was 8 meters from the river. And then they brought it to, I think, 20 meters or thereabouts. And that has maintained in this iteration. It's just now they've accommodated a fire turnaround.
Okay, so it's just a general first look at this thing.
Yeah, just you might note that there are differences between various plans. Like, for example, if you have looked at other documents that are out there in the public, so the stormwater management plan, that's based on their first iteration of the proposal with that 8 meter setback from the river. Of course, that is different now.
Anyone else? Jim?
Thank you. The question that I have is about a note that was on the plan, the site plan that was distributed with the minutes. And the question is to the comment that there should be 2 parking spots per housing unit. And that as the plan was drawn, there is 1 in front of each unit, and the remainder are to be elsewhere on the site. The only parking spots I saw showing on the site were opposite unit number 1, and there seem to be half a dozen spots or so, one of which is wider, so I'm assuming that's the accessible spot. Am I wrong in what I'm seeing?
No, and this will be going to site plan control, where they might have a little bit more detail, address the topography in a greater detail. But it's my understanding that there are 2 accessible stalls, and it is a 1.36 stalls per unit. That's what I could say on that.
Okay, I guess I'm still confused, and I'm not seeing anything close to what would look like 30 parking spots on the site, 30 additional parking spots.
Sorry, no, that's for added clarity, that it is 1.36 parking stalls in total. So for the whole development. So there is, just bear with me.
So there's about 10 parking spaces.
There's 41 parking stalls in total, 41.
Right.
So if I'm translating that right, Ian, there is roughly 1 parking spot for each building, And then there is one parking spot to be shared approximately with 3. So that each building
correct.
gets 1 1/3, roughly. I'm also looking, just for myself, I'm looking at a drawing A001. Obviously, I'm assuming that is the other one that we got was an overview, like an Earth overview, which I'm sure is just a pictorial. I'm seeing the grouping on the far right of the parking spots. I also see an elongated triangle on the left side. What exactly was that for?
You're saying an elongated triangle?
No, a rectangle on the far end of the road, going to your immediate left, far end of it. There's a box there or an open space. What was that for?
I'm sorry, Councillor Ryle, you'll have to confirm which document you're looking at. I'm trying to see what.
A001.
It says part of the original road allowance.
Where the original road allowance was. There's a shaded spot right there.
I think I'm. So you're talking about the plan that shows the original road allowance and a measurement. It also shows the topography, but it's not overlaid with any other features. Is that the drawing that you're talking about?
Correct. It appears to be, it has draft on it, and it's a schematic of the layout.
Yes. And all the units are numbered.
This one.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's the one I'm looking at. And I guess, could you restate your question then with me looking at this?
On the left side, there is a
Yes.
rectangle. And it looks like the extension of the road that's coming in. What is the purpose of that?
Okay, so you see by units 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and then it goes to that area where the fire hammerhead turnaround is. That is located on an unopened road allowance, which leads to essentially the Gull River there. So the south end of this property abuts an unopened road allowance, which it is the intent of the Township of Minden Hills to convey to this development.
Okay. Chelsea.
If I could just add a little information as well. In addition to the fire turnaround, I think this is also where that waste disposal is going to be. So that would be where your private service would back in, be able to empty the waste and then back out or drive back out to the highway.
Yes, correct. Charles E is absolutely correct. And it is identified there as waste storage B, with the other waste storage being located at the other end on the right-hand side.
Question?
Mallory, Sarah, do you
I
have
can't put my
any,
hand up.
Yep.
The units, how big are the parking spots for each of these units? Are they larger than average or?
It currently stands that in general, I think there are 2 exceptions. They are 2.75 meters by 6 meters. So that's your standard parking stall.
Okay. And each of these units are a bungalow, so assuming that they could be entered, or is there to be barriers to getting into the bungalows? This is the sort of stuff that I know we might be at an earlier phase where you don't have all the information on the design of the homes at this point.
That's correct, but
Okay.
Based on drawings that I've been provided, no, there wouldn't be stairs going up.
Okay, perfect. And I have another question. I'm sorry for adding on.
Go ahead.
This currently shows the entrance to the area directly across the street here. right onto Highway 35. Is the intention that the entrance will always be in that location, right off Highway 35?
So yes, it's the intention that the access is from Highway 35. It would be straight. Essentially, you could proceed straight through the intersection of County Road 21 across the Highway 35, and that's where you'd be entering the site.
Okay, because I know you're mentioning the proximity to downtown. So presumably this location is good because it's walkable as well, correct? In theory?
In what capacity?
And just that it's, I guess, going down the side of the highway is, you know, a bit dangerous, but I'm just thinking about ways to get in and out of the area as well to make sure that it's easily walkable to get out of here, because if you're close to that area, some people might want to walk into downtown because they're close enough, but that design would have to be done as it's developed. Sure that there's enough shoulder room and so on, just so it's not dangerous to walk out of there. That's all I'm saying.
So correct. There's 5 lanes of Highway 35 to get across to County Road 21. No modifications are proposed at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah, do you have any questions?
Not yet. No, thank you.
Jim?
I do have a question. It comes back to Mallory's comment about the individual parking spots in front of each residence. And I would just like some assurance that the requirement, the accessibility requirement as it applies to a multi-residential site like this does accommodate parking that is accessible, or would have parking that is accessible on the units. I can't tell from the picture or from your dimensions, Ian, whether the parking spots, individual parking spots, would accommodate a vehicle from an accessibility point of view. So that's one concern I have. The other concern is the 1.37 spots per unit. I'm sure is there as an allowance for a third of the people who are using the accommodation to have a second vehicle. So we're not really talking about visitor parking. We're talking about second vehicle parking, I'm assuming, in those spots at the north end and the missing spots, wherever they would be. So my question comes back to, if a person has a guest with accessible parking needs, where are they going to park and how are they going to get from that spot to the unit that they're visiting? Especially if they're in a wheelchair.
I don't believe that there is a clear plan for that, other than making some of the 0.36 or some of the other parking not available for residents. That's
Okay.
the only way I could say that that would be factored in. Otherwise, there would be parking during the summer at Rotary Park, or they'd be using the private parking of abutting commercial properties.
Sure. Are there sidewalks between Rotary Park and this site?
No, there is not.
So back to Mallory's question, someone who comes out of their unit to the highway, once they get that far, even if they have a sidewalk to get that far, they have no option but to be on the road in their wheelchair if they go beyond that point?
That concern has been raised.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more ask. I have one more ask as well. And I think I know what the answer is, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The vacant property across from units 20, 21, 22, I'm assuming it's because of the shoreline bylaw or the challenges of encroaching into the shoreline. Is there any opportunity there, and possibly Charles, it could be the one I would address it to, is there any opportunity there to working in that area to add maybe 2 or 3 more parking spots there, or are we completely in trouble?
We have a slope issue here. So especially if we're talking about accessibility, putting parking spots on a slope would not increase accessibility. As well, if there is higher water levels in a certain season, this location has in the past been impacted by water levels. So putting additional parking spaces or relying on something closer to the water, I would not advise it. But I understand the concern about accessibility and how additional parking could meet the needs of the units. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, but I'm asking, if I added the caveat to that, if the property for only the parking spots could be built up a little, would that be a challenge or just totally illegal?
So I always say anything can be engineered. I don't know what the cost to doing that would be. And that would be to the applicant to propose something that would meet the requirements of the township, as well as potentially anything to do, because the neighboring property as well, Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, is MTO, correct?
That is correct.
I don't know if they would have additional requirements as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have to highlight that there is significant slope issues. So in that area where they have the Hammerhead fire turnaround, there's about a 5 meter or so, looking for clarification, because unfortunately those ones, the elevations at 0.5 meter increments aren't labeled in this submission. But it does appear that there'd be a 5 meter or so, 4 meter or 5 meter retaining wall along the property line. They're looking into that.
Thank you for that, Ian. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Liz?
I just want to echo Jim's concern that there don't seem to be any parking spots that are specifically designed for accessibility. I suppose if there's like 1.3 parking spots in front of each unit, that might fulfill that need, but not if somebody wants to have, you know, an additional something in their spot. I do think that it should be the responsibility of the developer to make sure that there are some parking spots that are designed as truly accessible.
Yes, I'd like to echo that too. That seems like an oversight.
Jim?
I would just like to seek clarification on what Councillor Danielson mentioned, which is I did not hear that it's 1.3 parking spots in front of the unit. It's one parking spot in front of each dwelling, and on the entire site, the average is 1.3 something parking spots per dwelling. Okay, so that strengthens my concern.
I too have
Question
this.
two.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Sarah. Go ahead, Phil.
yeah, I too have this concern, and I also am very concerned about people walking along the highway, and I've seen it kind of in Halliburton at another housing complex, the one by Tim Hortons, and it is a bit dangerous. I see people in their scooters and along there, and it does concern me. The wheelchair not having the access or a sidewalk or a safe way, you know, to get to town, because I know people will do it. They will try.
Another question that I have, Ian, is for those people who have multiple vehicles, or I would say maximum of 2, because I can't see 3 being an issue, or at least allowed. Are they going to be first come, first served? Or for instance, there's going to be numbered lots, in which case you would be assigned one and apply for and possibly have a permit for the second one? And if so, would it be assigned to you? In other words, you now have the one in front of your building, and then you also now have for your use number 4 over in the parking area. Do you know that?
So that's a good question. Of course, with 30 units, there's going to be somebody having a birthday every week or so, right? It's just play the numbers out. 30 units, that's going to be about more than 60 people expected in that ballpark, 60 to 75 people, depending on what persons per unit you assume. So in terms of the parking, I think that it just logically stands that each of the parking stalls located in the front of each of the dwelling units is going to be tied to that unit. But not, as these are just apartment rentals, this isn't condominium with each parking stall a separate condominium unit, as you'd say find in some apartment condominium buildings in Toronto, right? It's my assumption that each one comes with one, and maybe there's a situation where you pay extra to have one of the 7 extra stalls that are afforded at the the north east section of the property. Because if those 7 stalls are filled up with tenants who have either paid or just it's a first come first serve, then there is just no on-site parking for a visitor, because of course that 6-meter wide interior laneway is the fire access route. Our fire chief does not want vehicles parking there.
So it becomes an issue besides visitors too. I live at Echo Hills in Haliburton, and I don't know if it's changed since I moved in here. It was a long time ago, but I live in an apartment, and because I have a car, I don't have a car. I don't have a parking spot. I was never given a parking spot or given the option to have one. I don't know if it's changed in HKPR since then, but because the visitor parking here is also used for the PSWs that support people here to park their cars when they come here to support people. So if there's no visitor parking, where are those people supposed to park? That's part of the service that people need here.
I have another question too, Ian. The two access roads, the shorter one going to the right where the parking spaces are, and of course the longer one which goes to the left and goes out to that proposed road allowance. Is there any opportunity there for on-road parking, or is that going to be so narrow that that's not going to be an option?
So while it's not proposed right now, as Charles E. alluded to earlier, you can engineer your way out of pretty much any problem. It's just a matter of cost.
And if I could add cost and depending on where it's located, MTO approval, because this is an MTO corridor. So when we're talking about parking and alternate locations as well as sidewalks, this is an MTO corridor, so they would be involved in that process.
So if we wanted to, or if a suggestion was made that in the case of a visitor parking, you could park in front of your building for a reasonable period of time or a limited period of time, that option at this point in time is not clear. Am I correct? Or is it just not legal?
So part of the issue that's making this, possibly not the final site plan that we see, is that the MTO is insisting that the setback be measured from the property line. They're asking for a 14-meter setback, whereas the applicant is indicating a 14-meter setback from the edge of the pavement. I'm having a conversation later today with MTO on this issue and hopefully finding some direction on this, but it is possible that it's possible that the entire development will be pushed towards the river to solve that. Basically we are aware of the concerns.
It sounds to me like parking is definitely an issue that is that needs more investigation one way or the other, because based on the general comments, is that we're all more or less of the opinion that 1.37 or whatever the number is per household is just not going to be enough between the permanent residents, the visitors, and the emergency vehicles that could or could not be there in terms of VON and such. Just may not be enough. Does anybody else share my concern?
Yes.
Pat?
Yeah, I share that concern. I'm just going to say, perhaps we just defer any further discussion until Ian finds out what the MTO's final decision is, which may impact the number, where it is. But I'm concerned about the lack of parking. And I think the developer is going to have to do some more work to try to accommodate some more spaces, especially on the south side of this development. Everything's on the north end for visitor parking. And if you had visitors wanting to come to see in lot 22, it's a bit of a hike from looking at this. So I would like to see some kind of an effort made to accommodate even some parallel parking along some part of the street.
Jim,
Yeah,
you
and
want
I
to
can
comment?
definitely bring such comments, and specifically I have here accessible stalls, as well as the number of stalls, to have the applicant consider revising the proposal further to account for such.
Jim, did you have another comment?
The only comment I would have, Councillor Ryle, is that I would like some clarification from the developer whether the parking spaces are in front of each residence would meet the requirements of an accessible parking space. Because if they don't, then you're limiting the rental of those units to people who don't have an accessibility requirement with their vehicle.
Based on my scaled measurements, and of course this is just for the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, all parking stalls in front of the individual units were 2.75 meters in width. So that's 9 feet in width, not generally an accessible parking stall, which if memory serves me is 4.25, but I can certainly draw that back to their attention.
Any additional comments or questions? So is it our suggestion that we defer this until Ian can get us more information and then we can come up with a more decisive set of recommendations? Charles?
I'm just wondering, it may be helpful if Ian could tell you the Planning Act timelines under which he is currently required to follow. In the case that it could not come back to Accessibility Committee before it goes to his council, it will have an opportunity before County Council, and maybe we might have to just jig the timelines based on the Planning Act. And again, I don't know what Ian's timelines are at present.
So I want to highlight that right now, the greatest concern is funding envelopes. Planning Act timelines, of course, open up right of appeal. And I think that there's not a desire to appeal the decision to the LPAT. I could check on when the application was deemed complete. But no, I think that it's fully the intent of our council to hear this application at the earliest opportunity. Unfortunately, I think that there is a possibility that the plan might change significantly in the next while, and that could be include changing to have more accessible stalls and number of stalls, certainly number of stalls being something that does get addressed at the zoning level, after which the site plan is not there to implement new requirements, but rather adhere to existing ones, such as your number of stalls per unit. I mean, really the timeline, I'm not aware of the funding deadlines that they are exposed to. I just understand that there is a great urgency for them.
Ian, if we were to can we hold some of the decisions that we're making with regards or have to make with regards to the actual parking? Because it seems to me the only issue we really have right now, with the exception of possibly some avenue to get from this particular spot by pedestrian or probably by bicycle into town, those are really the two issues. Is there any way that we could consider some of that after the fact, or do you need definitive answers on that before you can proceed with the go ahead? Because I don't think anybody wants to hold us up to the point where it loses.
So no, and there certainly will be greater opportunity later to comment, and the Accessibility Advisory Committee, the joint committee that's acting on behalf of Township Minden Hills, as well as the county and the other lower tiers, you know, you are an advisory committee and you are providing comment. You will be afforded added opportunity at site plan stage. You know, I certainly have pretty clear comments in terms of what you're looking for the number of stalls. The accessible stalls, you know, I think that's something that they could, without much issue, increase the width of the parking stalls in front of them, and you know that also caters to the clientele who they're aiming towards, right? They have featured prominently the fact that they are trying to build accessible units. So yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. The sidewalk, that is something that council was made aware of during the public meeting. I will be updating them in terms of the potential cost, which is, you know, in the ballpark of $500,000 or north of that. So, you know, our council has made reference to doing things to accommodate this, and you know, at least considering the feasibility of sidewalks might be one thing, but that might be more towards the site plan approval stage.
So I guess somewhere along here, we're going to have to come up with a set of recommendations. Mike, Michelle, I'm kind of lost here as to where to go next. The direction that we need to give Minden Hills is obviously advisory, so it's not mandatory. What's the next best steps for us to one, bring this to closure and give Minden Hills some decent direction?
Well, it appears to me that you have, I think even Ian has said he has pretty clear understanding of your advice and the areas of concern for the committee. Recognizing that it's still a bit of a work in progress. I think you've made clear, you know, any concerns that you have now. I think Ian indicated that there would be an opportunity to review through the site planning process and some other stuff, there may be an opportunity for us to have a further look when it's a little more concrete. Is that correct, Ian?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I you know, in my mind, you've accomplished really what you set out to do. You've provided comments to Ian saying, here's some areas of concern with what we've seen so far, and knowing that you'll have an opportunity to look at something as it is formed a little more.
So in other words, Ian, you're good with what we've given you so far?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, if you wish to provide formal comment in terms of a written letter, then, you know, I think that's just sort of a side element, and but I've certainly taken from this meeting that, you know, you'd like that there be more accessible stalls. You'd like there to be a greater number of stalls. And you've raised a concern about the lack of sidewalks and public safety. Those, I think, that's easy to convey to council, and then whether it comes on a sheet of paper or through my written comments and verbal account to council is.
Well, if you're comfortable with doing a verbal presentation, unless someone else has a need to have a written document, if you're good with what we've done so far today, you know, I think we're good. Is there one more round of comments that needs to be made, or is everybody pretty well voiced their opinion? Jim?
Thank you. I'm adding this as a personal comment. I'm not asking it to be the comment of the committee, but I would be more impressed if the corporation bringing this forward had shown that they were being a little more proactive in addressing accessibility issues, because the one drawing we've been commenting on today, to me, says nothing about accessibility.
Jim or Mike?
I guess my
And then Liz?
only comment to that would be that we had asked the local municipalities to be providing this to us as early as possible, even if it meant it wasn't in a fully formed or fully formed yet. So in some ways, they're responding to our request to get these plans to us quicker so that we can provide comment earlier. So I think in fairness to the townships, they're really doing what we asked them to do. I think that it is important, though, that as these proposals become more fully formed, that we continue to monitor them and watch for the changes that are happening and even provide further comment when that happens. But this really is something that is coming about because we asked to see these plans earlier.
I would also like to just highlight that the complete application and staff report was presented to Minden Hills Council. And of course, with that, it's available on the Civic Web portal. And the meeting was on January 28th, 2021. So all the documents, and really to spare the Accessible Advisory Committee, I spared you guys when you include the breadth of the stormwater management plan, the noise impact study, it was several hundreds of pages. So I thought that just by giving you the site plan, the overlay, that at least gives an idea of what the nature of the beast is. And I certainly appreciate some of the comments that have come from this. Absolutely.
Liz, you had a question.
Well, I was just going to say that there will be a set of draft minutes from this meeting that would help to support Ian's verbal comments that he makes to Minden Hills Council.
So I guess right now, and there's really we've touched everything here. The two issues have been brought forward. Ian seems to have a really great grasp of what we're looking for and a plan of how to get that to the right people for information. So unless somebody has a reason for continuing the discussion, I'd like to consider it closed. Is that okay with everyone? Hearing no objection, because it's a special meeting to deal with this, items 7, 8, 9, and 10 probably are not going to be dealt with. 11 is related to the next meeting, and the way that I'm hearing it is at this point in time, we're going to be holding meetings based on need and specific situations until we get a better grasp of what we're going to be doing in the future. So that leads us to a motion for adjournment.
Be it resolved that the February 24th,
Oh,
February.
one moment. Liz, you had a question?
I'm just going to move to adjourn.
Oh, okay. Just
Be it
Liz will
resolved
move
that
to
the
adjourn.
February 24th, 2021 meeting of the Haliburton County Joint Accessibility Committee now adjourned. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please.
Liz moved and Lisa second. All in favor?
Yes.
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 The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. And this is going to be an awesome project. I think it's in the best interest of all of Haliburton County, and obviously over in the west side. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.